Hey guys, this is John. Welcome to another installment of Climbing the Tactics Training Ladder. So I left off at 1801. Let's see if we can take this even higher today. I'm going to be solving puzzles, and as always, feel free to pause the video right as the puzzle comes up if you want to try to solve yourself and then hear what I have to say about the puzzle. All right, so let's hope for a good session. We're 62 problems in, 60 passes, 2 fails. So white to move, knight c6, hits the undefended bishop on b4. We can grab this pawn on g7. That also controls the f8 square. We could also throw in bishop d6 first, though. I think that's better because if queen takes g7 immediately, black can castle and connect the rooks. So I like throwing in bishop d6 so as to force the queen to the back rank and then snatch the pawn. I think that's the way to go here. Yeah, and as it turns out, black just sacrifices their queen. As we've often seen in these tactics training puzzles, chess.com will throw you positions where there's like one immediately tempting move, but it's bad. And there the tempting move was queen takes g7. So if I just go back to that one, had we played from the outset here, queen takes g7 immediately, that looks good because the rook on h8 is attacked, and black cannot play rook f8 without getting mated. Queen takes f8, but castle's queenside is possible, and then the rooks defend each other, and black escapes with a minimum of damage. Although actually bishop d6 is still strong even here, isn't it? That traps the queen. I guess maybe black could play rook g8 and try to give up a bit of material. But I suspect that the immediate bishop d6 is even stronger because had black played queen c8 or queen d8, we take here, and how does black even avoid getting checkmated here? It's difficult. The rook can't flee to g8 or f8. That bishop on d6 is a monster. Okay, next problem. Bishop and knight versus a rook, but white has the a-pawn. So if I play a7 right away, how does he stop me from queening? Knight takes e5 check, probably bishop e4 coming. So what if I get rid of this rook? Rook takes f5, pawn takes f5, then a7. He could throw in a check somewhere, knight e5, let's say, but I still don't see how he stops the pawn. King d5, knight d7. Maybe king d6 instead is best. So rook takes f5, g takes f5, a7, knight e5 check, king d6. Staying out of any forking business. That should do the trick. I could also just play rook a5 here and try to escort the pawn, but I want to get rid of this bishop so that bishop e4 is not at all a concern. So yeah, I think this is correct. And we solved the puzzle. If I were the puzzle creator, I would have taken this one step further and thrown in the knight e5 check move right at the end. So right here, because there is the trap if white goes king here, trying to attack the knight. Then black can play this, and if white queens, there's knight b6, forking the king and the queen. But most likely white can play king d6 as I was describing, or perhaps even king b7, although that allows a check on b4. So king d6 is the most precise looking move, and I think black loses. Although there is this, followed by rook d8, isn't there? Should be winning for white, but again, maybe the problem could continue. Anything else I'm missing here? Maybe king b5. King b5, just stopping a check on b4, staying out of range of the knight as well. I revised my answer then. King d6, maybe not the best. King b5, probably even more accurate. And then black's really sunk. Pressing ahead. I'm at 1813. Okay, so our queen just got taken. I want to promote to a knight and try to checkmate him. Is that so far-fetched? I don't think so. So if we promote to a knight in king h7, then knight f6 should be checkmating soon. If we promote to a knight in king h5, then knight f6 again. King h4. Maybe he's escaping there. We could also play, just promote to a queen. Or even knight g8 check, but somehow promoting to a knight seems best. King h5. How do I refute king h5? Maybe knight g to f6 check. And then if king h4, knight g6 is checkmate. So he'd have to go back to h6. And then I check with this knight on g8, and that is mate. Yeah, I think that's a forced checkmate, so I'm going to go for it. Yeah, so now this move, I believe. Just confirming, but yeah, that's it. And that's mate. So not a problem you're going to see over the board. 3 knights combining to checkmate. If you do, that's extremely rare and fortunate for you. But nice under promotion there. Under promotions just hardly ever happen in real games. But here the fear is that if white gets a queen, then black has the ability to check white. Like, I mean, just looking quickly at the position. If g8 queen, then bishop e6 check is going to skewer the king to the queen. So we promote to a knight instead. And all roads lead to Rome here. If this king goes to h7, then actually there's several mate in twos, like knight g5, king here. This is a nice mate with the knights all aligned on the g file. Next one. So white down material, but on the verge of checkmating. Queen g6 jumps out because black would have to play king h8 in that case. Queen f6 then. King g8 going back. That's close, but not quite working. Queen g6, king h8, queen f7 maybe. A slow move, but black has no checks, no meaningful checks, and we're threatening rook takes f8. He can't play rook a8. We would just take the rook. So queen g6, king h8, queen f7, and how does black survive? I mean, he's going to have to punt a ton of material there. This rook on a7 is not helping one bit. Yeah, I like that. I mean, we could look for a more forced solution, but a quiet move seems to do the trick. Now let's just take that guy. We're going to win the queen. Problem solved. So that takes a bit of experience to know that the forcing moves are not going to lead to the desired outcome. But you might be able to discern with the way the queen is protecting the bishop and the fact that a check always allows the black king to come back to g8. You might be able to discern that some quiet move is needed. I came to that conclusion pretty fast, but for instance, if we continue checking there, so queen f6 or something, king g8, he's still double defending this bishop. I mean, white could give a bunch of checks. I mean, check on h5, but eventually you want to get the queen to f7 and double attack here, and the fact that rook a8 is just failing to rook takes a8 helps white out a lot. No good way for black to defend. This rook being on a7 and so uselessly placed was a cue here. Okay, next one. This looks like it came out of the Budapest Gambit. I see a way to fork the rooks just immediately. So if we play bishop takes e4, we create an undefended piece on e4, rook takes e4. Then bishop takes c5, he must play b takes c5. And then queen d5 is a nice fork on these 2 undefended rooks. And he cannot defend both of them. Bishop f5 or bishop b7 is not working. And I think that's the best move order too. So let's do that. And take this. Again, the d-pawn is pinned. And here is the decisive blow. So awareness of undefended pieces is crucial when you're trying to get better in chess, and especially when you're solving tactics too. You guys know I harp on this constantly in my videos. The very first chess fundamentals video, right? Undefended pieces. And there you have it in problem form. So in this one, I like this one because in the position in front of you, there are no immediately undefended pieces. Like there's no piece, well, I guess there's the rook on a8. This is undefended, but the piece that we're taking advantage of is that rook on e4. It's in the middle of the board and therefore subject to attack. And you combine it with the already existing undefended piece, it's just a pure double attack, and white comes away with the win of material here. No move black can play to defend both rooks. Nice problem. All right, so here I'm looking at this pawn break through g6, but after f takes g6, black is stopping the pawn's promotion, seems to me. No real checks or anything to consider. So what if I play rook takes e6? Rook takes e6, f takes e6, then g6. 2 pawns on the 6th rank cannot be stopped by a lone rook. Yeah, I think black's dead there. So just mixing up the order of moves. I want to get rid of that f7 pawn, so I very much like this plan. Yeah, and black's sunk because I'm pushing f7 or g7 next. He'll have to bring his rook back to g8 to guard against promotion, and then we're pushing the other pawn. So let's say if we had continued with that, king e5, then f7 or g7, you can take your pick. Black could even throw in a check. That doesn't do anything. We just hide our king. He's going to be forced back to the 8th rank. And then we get this other pawn up. Pawn tandem, ready to promote. So useful rule of thumb. 2 pawns connected on the 6th rank are besting a rook. Or a single rook, unless it's able to take one of the pawns immediately, is not able to stop those pawns. And that's why this combination works. And also practical here, a little practical lesson is switching up the move order. You know, I looked at g6 immediately. That's the move that sprang to mind. But after takes, that pawn on its own is not quite strong enough. It doesn't have the rook support. And if I play rook f2, black is going to step in front of the pawn and we fail. But that cued me into the fact that the f7 pawn is important and we want to remove it. So therefore, rook takes e6 is the way to go. And maybe black should not take the rook, but if he does something else, let's say king d5, we're ready to play rook e7. White's up a pawn here, about to be up another pawn if black moves the rook away. So this is over. Tricky position where white is ahead material, but we got to neutralize this b pawn. So we can't take the rook on a4 clearly. Okay, what do we do here? If we move the rook, black is playing rook a1 next move. I guess then we're playing rook b8. And we need to move this rook to a defended square. So it probably has to be rook f1. So that if rook a1, rook b8, we're stopping the pawn and rook takes f1, we can just take back. If rook f1, rook b4, we're in time to play rook b2. Or rook b1 rather, stopping the b2 pawn. And we will put a halt to that pawn. So yeah, this is a nice solution. Now rook b8. No other square on the 1st rank would have worked for white because the rook would have been undefended on any other square we could have chosen there. So a takes b2. If we put the rook on b1, d1, e1, they all fail because rook a1 and there's that immediate attack on the rook. We don't have time for rook b8 here. And of course, taking is out of the question, allowing promotion and a back rank checkmate soon. And same deficiency with rook d1. Same issue here. But going rook f1, protecting the rook, now we diffuse the main threat of rook a1. We have time to go here and attack the b2 pawn. So black is unable to hold it. Yeah, promoting, just we take it. I guess maybe his best try is rook b4 here, but I was prepared to play rook back to b1. And then if he tries to go rook a4 looking for rook a1 again, we don't take the pawn because, again, the back rank checkmate, but we play rook c2 and then we'll scoop up b2. Open position, black is underdeveloped. And this diagonal is speaking to me right now. What about bishop f3, just hitting the rook on a8? How does black prevent us from just straight up winning the rook? We can't go queen e4. I mean, we could, but that'll just lead to a queen exchange. But bishop f3, on the other hand, just hits this rook in the corner. Any other moves we could throw in? I mean, bishop h5, there's queen e6 check, so I don't see that leading anywhere. Maybe knight b5 is worth looking at. But that's not a pure attack on the bishop. It's defended by the queen. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with this one. Bishop f3. Bishop d7. Does that do anything? Not according to what I see. It seemed like an easy problem. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that 40% of people fail that one. Because all you have to do is recognize how exposed that rook is on a8 along this completely open diagonal and adjust your play accordingly. Resist the temptation to play queen e4, which allows a queen trade. Yeah, bishop f3 is working. Not much else to that one. Okay, what do we have here? White looks pretty cramped. The queen on h5 is subject to attack if I play f4. We've got pressure on this pin knight, although I don't see a way to increase it. White has so many defenders of that piece. I don't think the pin knight is going to be the real target here. I feel it's the queen. So if we play f4, where is white's queen going? Let's say back to f3, attacking this knight. We could play rook e3 maybe. Rook e3 would force him further back. So maybe on f4 he should play queen g6. Maybe that's a better option. Hitting the knight on d3 again. We could play our knight to f5 and then attack his bishop. Bishop g5 then. Okay, here we go. So if we play knight f4, attacking the queen, we're also threatening knight e2. because that king is cramped in, yeah, he doesn't have a good counter to that. That took a bit of a mental leap because originally I wanted to keep that knight on d3 where it was pinning the knight. But as I said, my intuition told me that the white queen was kind of the key to the problem here. And after we attack the queen with tempo, should white retreat that queen somewhere? So say f3. Now we're getting in knight e2 check, and it's nearly smothered mate. White has to sacrifice their queen, and they'll wind up losing. So a couple things tipped us off here, especially the knight being on h1. The king is very nearly smothered. I almost said that if I could get a knight to e2, it's going to force white to part with the queen, but I didn't say that for some reason. But planting that idea in my head eventually led to knight f4, which wins the game. All right, 1857, rolling right along. All right, here we have the possibility of taking en passant, and I don't see why we would not play that. En passant with check, king f6, queen e6 is mate. That looks really simple. And you can't go anywhere else either. Yeah, it has to play this, and it's just mate next move. Again, only a 50-50 pass rate on that one. So what could trip people up in this problem? Maybe just forgetting that white can take en passant, or not seeing the previous move that black played. That's why chess.com shows you the previous move, because if d5 was given without context, you may not think that white has en passant available for here on this move. For all you know, the pawn could have been on d6, but since chess.com shows you that d5 is played, we know that en passant is available. Yeah, and black can't retreat the king to e8, f8, or g8. They're all covered. g7's covered. Everywhere on the e file's covered. So it's either give up the bishop or play king f6, and king f6 eventually leads to checkmate. Next one. Okay, so we can take that hanging bishop on e7, but we're going to get pinned after rook e8. Do we have a remedy to that? I don't see one. I think that's just going to win the queen. I mean, there's bishop takes d6, but rook takes e7 is working. So the other move I kind of like is knight f5, attacking the bishop. So if knight f5, then if the bishop moves away, whoops, went to a menu right above the board. So if knight f5, bishop moves away, we have bishop takes d6. And if knight f5, rook e8, then we're safe to play knight takes e7 followed by bishop takes d6. So we're not picking up that bishop right away, but we're actually bringing in another piece to attack the bishop. Then we're winning it. And the goal is not so much to win the bishop, but to win the pawn on d6, because we're in a pin here along the e-file, a pretty serious pin with our king and our queen lined up. But if we can win the d-pawn, so like say the problem had continued and black plays king f8, this menu like right above the board is so annoying, because every time I put my mouse anywhere close to the 8th rank, it like pops up this menu. So sorry about that. Chess.com, you should fix that. So king f8, yeah, bishop takes d6. And now we're holding the knight and attacking the queen. Yeah, that's just decisive. So got to resist your first instincts often in chess, as we've seen with these problems. And queen takes e7 is failing because of rook e8 picking up the queen. Therefore, another way of hitting that undefended piece, knight f5, is working beautifully, however. And at bishop d8, there's bishop takes d6, forking queen and rook. Okie doke. So we're at 1874. Castle's queenside. This queen is looking awkward on b3. I feel it's close to being won, but also our rook is awkward on c5. We can go over here and take the bishop. So rook takes g5, knight takes g5, bishop f4 check. That's going to pick up 2 pieces for the rook. In the absence of anything else, I like that. I mean, this pin is pretty annoying. I don't want that pin to stick around. I don't see how we're going to take advantage of this queen. Maybe a5. a5's kind of slow, though. a5 trying to go a4. I'm not completely convinced by that. Yeah, I don't think a5 is going to be working. You could always play c3 if you like. So rook takes g5 on the other hand. And then check, pick up the bishop, or pick up the knight. We're diffusing a lot of white's play. I'm still a little bit worried about the kingside pawns, but I believe I'm going to go with that. So check. Yeah, 2 rooks for the, or 2 pieces for the rook. So we only win 1 point of material, but we get rid of a dangerous attacking piece in white's possession, that bishop on g5. So had a look at A couple things involving the queen, mainly playing a5 and trying to go after that queen with a4, but I wasn't so sold on the a4 threat. And again, white has an out if they really need it, c3 or something. Rook takes g5 is much more to the point. Yeah, give a check, pick up the knight. Just mentally continuing this, I thought maybe white could play h4, trying to chase the bishop, but after bishop here, if black plays carefully, yeah, white's not going to be winning any further material or anything. All right. So capture on g6. I'm looking at captures here immediately. There's also this hanging knight to consider. Hanging knight on d3. So if we take here, there's knight f2 check. How killer is that? I mean, can we ignore it? We can just play king h2. We're not worried about losing the rook on d1. We're checkmating black rapidly. So bishop takes g6 or scoop up the knight. I mean, both are pretty tempting. But if we scoop up the knight, queen back to g7, he has some chances for survival. Black does have, what, an extra couple pawns or something? So is bishop takes g6 just a more lethal way to execute black? It seems to me it is. Knight f2, king h2. Yeah, and that rook on d1 is meaningless. It doesn't play any part in the attack. I like it. And we can refute queen g7 or queen h8. So I'm going to go for this. King here, let him take the rook. Or do that, okay, in which case we're taking here. Yeah, and end of problem. So I don't think there was much wrong with taking the free knight. That wins a tempo. And, you know, in a blitz game, you might just play this just for simplicity's sake. But black can play the queen back here and try to swap. Note that bishop takes g6, no longer working because of queen takes h6 check. So black can try to swap and maybe hang on in an endgame. I'm sure this is still technically winning for white. But bishop takes g6, on the other hand, is ruthlessly accurate, and I don't think black can avoid checkmate or a very serious loss of material. So if they try queen g7 now, then bishop h7, check. Black cannot take with the queen because he's pinned on the g-file, so king's going to run to h8 or f8, and then we mate. And the only other thing to consider is this knight f2 check, which the computer played, and you know, if they take the rook, we're ready to checkmate. There's actually a couple forced mates here, but one simple one is like this. All right, we'll do a few more problems. So king c7, tricky pawn endgame. So I got to watch out for b4 followed by a4, or a3 rather, if I take that pawn. So what if I play king c3, king c6, king b4, trying to run black out of moves? I think we have enough pawn tempi over here, aka enough waiting moves to win that pawn on b5. So if king here and they play some other move, I don't know, let's say king b7, king to b4, king c6, then h3 or h4, either one should work. Yeah, that's decisive. So let's do that. And only a one-move solution. Yeah, so you got to get the king over. You just don't want to press forward with the king. So king d5, because then black is going to play b4, creating a pass pawn. If you take, you're actually going to lose after a3. The king is unable to make it back in time to stop the pawn. So if this were to happen, white would have to play here. And you do not want this, because after b3, black has a protected pass b pawn. White will have to play king c3 to try to get in front of it. And now black has time to go win this pawn and circle around and go win these. Could even keep his king close and try to win on the queen side, I believe. But yeah, don't allow your opponent any leeway with that pass pawn creation. So king c3, we're just getting around, putting the king on b4. Let's just take a line like this. So black will have to come up to c6. And now it boils down to the pawn tempi. And fortunately for white, white has more pawn tempi or available pawn moves to make. And here, as I said, h4 or h3. Let's say h4. And then whichever pawn black pushes, we can lock it up. So say they play, let's say g5. You can go h5. This king must be shifted. So king back here, take. White wins the game. We can pick up a4 or eventually circle around and win these pawns if we want to. All right, white's up a ton of material. Our first move seems absolutely forced here. We can't go to h2 or h1. We get mated. So king f1 forced. Yeah, and don't spend any time on moves that are not forced. Okay, so here I am going to think, because king e1, we're getting mated with queen e2. So let's not play that. But what if we play rook c4? We're up 2 rooks, so if I can give one but avert perpetual check, that's worth it to me. So rook c4, because king g1 is just a perpetual, but yeah, I like this one. Because now we can go king g1 and note that he can't go back to the g file to check us again. So we're not being too greedy there. We're just shedding some of the excess material to make our defensive task very simple. So yeah, queen takes c4 and we're safe. So just got to be heads up, avoiding the checks and the checkmates in the event of king h2 or king h1. Queen g2 is mate. And here, if king e1, you're inattentive, you're just mindlessly running with your king, you get checkmated when you're up 2 rooks. So yeah, rook c4. And black has nothing better than to take the rook. Otherwise, you know, he's completely lost. All right, so if I get this next one, maybe I can break 1900. It seems like a good stopping point. We're not concerned about rating, really, but still would be a nice number to hit. Okay, so white's king is precariously placed, but he's attacking this pawn. Aha, so if we play king e8, we're threatening rook to g6. Checkmate. But he has rook h6 in reply. Just thinking if we could somehow get our knight involved thereafter. How do we do that, though? So king e8, rook h6. Where is our knight getting involved here? I want to get my knight to g8, but still have my rook cover g5 somehow. I don't know if that's working. So king e8, rook h6. Where's the knockout? Knight f5, he just takes it. That's not sufficient. Ah, d4 then. d4, and we're popping our knight out to d5. That must be it. Yep. Okay, so king e8. It's crucial that we defend f7, and now we want to get the knight involved, so I like this move. Threatening knight d5 checkmate. His king is caught. Ooh, and we barely got there. We hit 1901. All right. I think we gained exactly like 100 points this session. If I'm not mistaken, I started at 1801. I like that problem. So, yeah, white's king is very deep in our position, clearly. But the first move you might look at is a forcing move, rook g6. So here, black playing a check. But after king takes f7, it's unlikely we're going to checkmate because this knight is stuck defending the rook. Even the rook doesn't have a lot of scope. Actually, black's just losing here. So switching up the order of moves, saying to yourself, I want to check on g6, but I need to solve the issue of the hanging f7 pawn first, will quite quickly lead you to king e8, whereupon rook g6 mate is a hard threat for white to parry. Aside from rook h8, which just gives up the rook for free, the only way to deal with it is rook h6. And this took a bit of thinking how to deal with that defense, because as I was saying, I wanted to get my knight to g8. Like, if I could have, let's say my rook is on g4 for some reason. I don't know why. If I could play knight g8 there, that would be checkmate, guarding g5. But I couldn't figure out the logistics, how that would work, because obviously rook takes g4, he's just taking, and we're down a rook, he's escaping through g5 or g7. So then I hit upon this idea of pushing the d-pawn to make way for the knight to come to d5, and that just so happens to work. And it also so happens that white has no way to stop knight d5. White's knight here can't dispute our knight coming to that square, so it's just mate next move. There's not even a spite check or something white can throw in. So, nifty problem. All right, so we solved quite a few problems rapid fire this session, kept the video a little shorter, and we're above 1900. The problems are going to get even tougher soon. So, thank you guys for following me as I climb the tactics training ladder on chess.com. There'll be more of these videos, and I'll see how high rated I can get on the tactics trainer. So take your time on your problems this week. Always solve for accuracy, and you'll be setting yourself up for chess improvement. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.